What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny is out in full swing now, the fifth and final Indiana Jones installment. This is going to be a spoiler-filled review for Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. I have my cohort, Pat Guy, joining me here. What's going on today?
Not much. This movie belongs in a museum.
Okay, I'm kind of glad that you're on this actually, because I think while we may overlap with some thoughts, especially with that third act, um, I think we're probably going to be somewhat different on this because for me, I had fun with it for the most part until that third act. I thought it was actually adequate. I don't know how you feel, but we might battle in this. So let's just get your opening thoughts on it.
Overall, I thought Dial of Destiny was a decent movie. It was like a decent Indiana Jones movie, but I think it's like for me it was like the definition of like all right. Like it was very I don't know, there's just I feel like 2 years from now I'm going to remember very little from this movie besides
See,
the big thing.
see, I feel the opposite. I feel like I'm gonna remember more scenes from this movie than
Yeah.
Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Yeah, but see, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was so outlandish that it at least has that, where I remember the refrigerator because it was stupid. I remember the monkeys because it was stupid. I remember like a lot of those moments because it was stupid, which is like bad, but
Right.
also like I still remember them. I saw this movie 2 days ago.
Yeah.
I already can't like
Yeah.
remember specific great moments. Like there wasn't any moments in this movie where I went, "Yes, that was amazing." I was just kind of like, "All right, just gotta let it happen." I was kind
Yeah.
of
See, I'm kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum because while I'm not going to say that the action like stood toe to toe with the first three, obviously it doesn't. It obviously this is a movie that obviously has a lot of flaws. I think we can both acknowledge that.
yeah,
And the action not standing toe to toe with those first three is one of those flaws, and I think that was a given going in. But and I think what a given for me going in too was that it wasn't going to capture the magic or the spark or the bravado that those had because different director. It's James Mann.
yeah. It was lacking the Spielberg
Yeah,
charm. There
yeah, and
was a
even and I don't know how this movie would have went like this exact movie if Spielberg had directed it. I don't know if that spark or charm was gonna catch fire again because I felt like that was lacking with the fourth one anyways.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
But in terms of the action in this movie, I'm gonna remember the action in this movie a little bit more than the fourth one. I'm gonna remember as much as the characters are kind of in this movie, I'm gonna remember them a lot more than people like fucking Oxley or Mac from Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Sure, but I'll remember Mutt Williams much better than I remember any of these people.
Um, I, I
Straight up.
I think what helps this movie for me too is something that I've been saying from the beginning, and you probably feel differently, but I just think that this movie keeps moving. Um, to an extent, I do think it craters in that third act. I think that's where it craters. I've seen people say it craters when you get to the scene where they have to go deep diving for the Graphicos with the eel. I think that that's actually a standout sequence. Um,
That's like my favorite part of the movie, probably only because that never had been done in like an Indiana Jones movie
right,
before.
right.
Where so many of the other scenes in this movie just feel like recycled Indiana Jones scenes,
But see,
and
I
the
think
amount of times that this movie just feels like they go to a place. Mads Mikkelsen shows up with the guy from Logan who's just playing the guy from Logan, and they show up and they're like, "Oh, look at us!" And then something happens and they get away, and then they show up, and I'm like,
yeah.
"Knock it
but
off!"
but see like
Knock it
but see I think for me with the action and like the I think the pacing really helped us. I think especially in that first 20 minutes. I know that we're going to have a lot to say probably about the de-aging and the voice of Harrison Ford. I'm taking that out of the equation for just a minute. Um I think that the way that stuff like that is paced where it's building up to the action and then you get to the action. I think it was done a lot better here than in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, where I felt like there were too many like slow points in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. In Kingdom of the
But
Crystal
this
Skull,
is
you have like that 45-minute chunk of the movie where it's just Mutt and Indy walking through, I don't know,
I
some
think
indigenous
I
place.
think this is where we're fundamentally different here, Alex.
Yeah, I
Kingdom
see. I knew we would.
Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, I don't like. I think it's a bad movie. Watch our retrospective where I was like, the last few times I've watched it, I've been bored out of my mind. It's not a good movie. I'm casting that aside and I'm going, if I compare this to that, yeah, I can find more positives here probably.
Yeah.
But also, this on its own, I was super underwhelmed. I just
Yeah.
wasn't, there wasn't enough that, like, on its own to lift it up. That's why I think it's going to be forgettable. I think,
Yeah. Well, see, and I'm opposite because I was sitting there for the first 20 minutes. Like, I think, I don't know. Sometimes I get caught up in excitement. Sometimes I just can't believe that I'm watching like a new movie in a given series.
sure.
So I was sitting there like during the train sequence in the opening with D.H. Harrison Ford and Basil Shaw fighting Nazis on top of a train and trying to get the Lance of Longinus or whatever the hell it was called.
Yeah, it was like it was the Spear of Destiny, essentially.
Yeah, and I just and I thought that the action was like kind of exciting in that point,
So,
and I think my mindset in that moment too was I'm watching a new Indiana Jones movie for the first time in 15 years on a big
mhm.
screen, and I think that that's what brought some excitement to the movie for me.
That opening for me, I like a lot of the actual train sequence. I
Yeah,
thought there were moments that felt like classic Indiana Jones, like walking
exactly.
into the thing full of Nazis and like stuff like that. Like that was cool. That was fine.
Yeah,
The problem for me was I literally kept getting pulled out of the scene, not from
the
the
de-aging. Yeah,
there was some shots that were wonky, but overall it was really good looking
yeah.
de-aging.
It was the
The
voice.
voice though
Yeah,
throws the whole illusion off.
yeah,
It makes it feel so unnatural and gross and
yeah.
weird.
Because
Like,
you're
cause he
literally
opens his mouth and
watching.
he's like, "Hey," I'm like, that is 80-year-old Harrison
Yeah.
Ford. That is not like
That
40-year-old Harrison.
that is legitimately my problem with the scene too. It's like you're watching
And
40-year-old Harrison Ford from 1944 era Indy with
yeah,
80-year-old Harrison Ford's
yeah,
hair.
it doesn't match and it's
I
weird.
noticed that immediately. I was like,
Yes.
this is weird. I mean, I didn't hark too much on it because I guess I just got used to it.
I did not. The whole scene, every moment he spoke, especially as they're getting out of the water at the end of the sequence, and he's talking to Shaw as he's getting in his mouth isn't even moving while he's talking with Indiana
I
with
didn't see. I didn't know.
80-year-old Harrison. I was like, what the fuck are we doing? Why did we let this happen? Like, especially because this movie was made by Lucasfilm.
And it cost
Lucasfilm
395 million.
it cost 395 million, and Lucasfilm has shown that they have the technology to make their actors sound younger.
Yeah,
Straight up, you have a AI Mark Hamill voice.
yeah.
You can figure out ways to make
Get,
him sound like Indy.
get Anthony and Gruber up in that bitch.
It was very distracting for me.
Yeah,
That hurt the scene a lot because I was digging some of the train stuff. I love Thomas Kretschmann, so it was cool to see
yeah,
him.
yeah,
One of the big problems I have with the movie too, I'm a Last Crusade guy through and
yeah.
through. In the retrospective, I'm like, that is easily the best Indiana Jones movie.
Yeah.
Raiders is a classic, obviously. Temple of Doom is it's
Yeah.
fine, it's fine, it's
How dare you?
all right. And the Kingdom is blah, and Dial of Destiny to me is kind of blah. And one of the problems for me, a big problem, is I have the same problem with this movie as I have with Temple of Doom, where the MacGuffin is just not interesting.
No,
Like,
it,
there's not enough to the
honestly,
MacGuffin to make me give a shit.
yes.
Like the whole,
Honestly, that's what I was thinking during the train scene. I said to myself, wouldn't this be much more like, shouldn't the final Indiana Jones movie be a religious artifact?
I mean, I would think so, but apparently it's all about math and time travel now, which is like, what the fuck? So, but like, even like, just like, okay, Archimedes made it or whatever. Like, oh, okay, but like the Holy Grail storyline or
Yeah,
the Ark of the Covenant, there was so much more going on. And
yeah,
it was like there was something interesting. There were stories you were discovering, and fucking the three knights and the brothers and the blah blah blah. Like
yeah.
it was interesting stuff.
The staff room. Yeah.
Where this thing? What the hell was this even called? The Aphrodite? What was it called?
The Antikythera.
The Antikythera. Like it was so like I was like,
How did I
what is this
remember that?
made
I
up
don't know how I
bullshit?
remember.
Even if it's real, like it's not interesting enough for me to like. If I'm going to an Indiana Jones movie, I want to go after something interesting. Like
Yeah,
I want to go after even I would dare say they pretty much convinced me in Crystal Skull, where they went, here's a skull that looks like an alien from Area 51. And the fact they even went, oh, this is what they found in Roswell in like 1940, whatever. I was like, okay, I can buy it. I can dig it that that's some ancient, and all the, like,
Yeah.
I could sort of buy that. Where this one, it was like, here's this half a thing that Archimedes made, and he doesn't want the other. And I'm like, who cares? And like we kept going to all these places, and it wasn't like, in like Last Crusade, where each place they go to was like interesting, and
Yeah.
like you learned and uncovered more stuff. It felt like we are doing the same thing over and over with. I'm okay. I love Phoebe Waller-Bridge in Fleabag.
Yeah.
She is fantastic in Fleabag. That is a great show. She is phenomenal in it.
Mhm.
I did not like her in this movie.
I was on and off with her because I
Oh.
thought that there were aspects of her character that were interesting. I thought that it was interesting, but I'm kind of going to contradict myself when I say this because I thought it was interesting that she was like the daughter of an old war pal of Indy's,
Yeah.
that she was like an archaeologist and a treasure hunter like him. But
Mhm.
wouldn't it have made more sense to make her Marcus Brody's daughter?
I mean, I didn't really mind that it was some new guy we just made up for this movie,
Yeah.
like, because I mean, they kind of did that with what John Hurt in the last one. We're like, oh, here's Indy's friend, and it's like, who the fuck is that?
Well, I guess I'm just taking into account the goddaughter aspect because I'm like, yeah,
that
because
was
I feel like
fine.
I feel like if you're gonna make somebody the goddaughter, it would be Marcus Brody's daughter, I guess.
It's just
Um,
for me,
yeah,
the concept of her being like his family, but not his family, but also like close to him, like that was fine.
yeah.
Her
Here's the
performance
part.
was not
Here's
okay.
here's the part that I thought was stupid. I honestly didn't mind her like taking half the dial and like selling it off at an auction. I thought the dumbest part of that scene though was like those Moroccan mobsters and like the dude was like her fiance or something.
Yeah, it was just a lot of stuff we didn't need, and
Yeah,
honestly,
like that. Those guys should have just been Volaire's guys.
yeah, if I understand the need with an aging character like Indiana Jones, who's like old now. I understand the need to have like a younger characters to follow and do a bit more of the action. Like I get the need. That's why we had Mutt Williams in the fucking fourth one. Like I get the need,
Yeah,
but her character to me was just so hard to like. There was just like this smug like
yeah.
pompousness that I was like,
You know, I'll agree with you to an extent because it starts off smooth, but then all of a sudden like a switch flips and it's
yeah.
like what you
I,
didn't
I
expect
liked
that
when she
before.
first showed up and she was the one in the class that knew
Yeah,
the answers. Like I liked that stuff.
yeah.
But once she was like a criminal and a smuggler and a thief, and she got the
Yeah.
boy who was like her like sidekick. I'm
I
like,
love that Tangier chase, like that tuk chase. I really love. I think that's a standout sequence for me.
can't
I just don't like the
moment.
setup.
I remember it happened. I couldn't tell you a single moment in it.
You don't remember the car going in between the two buildings and getting stuck?
No, like I remember them being in the vehicle,
Yeah.
and I could not tell you a single thing that happened after that. I know they
Yeah,
escaped or whatever.
see, I thought that in the opening were like the two standout action sequences. The other action sequence, the parade one, I didn't really like. I thought that was kind of a weak one. It was just like,
Okay,
oh hey, we're gonna chase him on top of a building. Oh, now Indy's on a horse. Oh, he's in the subway. That's it.
this movie to me too just felt so unfocused sometimes, where it spent so much time setting up like, oh, he's the old Nazi guy, but now he's working for the U.S. government, and here's this
I didn't
U.S.
mind that.
government agent who seems important, and then she immediately dies.
I didn't mind
after
that.
like 5 scenes of setting her up. I'm like, what was the point of all of this? Why
I didn't mind that.
Nazi bad guys?
See, I didn't mind that. I get where you're coming from, but for me, I kind of looked at that as it's like, well, the U.S. government is entrusting Nazis to help them now, so it's like they kind of have to work with the Nazis. But then I felt like the whole point of that was, okay, she's seeing that like they're ex-Nazis, and she knows that they're up to no good, and by the time she knows, it's too late.
I mean, she didn't try to do anything about it, and it was like
It's
when
true.
they didn't remotely establish what was Boyd Holbrook's role in the whole group. It was like he's not supposed to be here, but he's apparently coming with us everywhere, and it's like he's not a government agent. but he's somehow letting.
Dude,
I was trying so hard to figure out what the fuck was going on with it.
okay, I'll give you one disappointing aspect about that like whole group of characters. That big muscular dude. Indy
Doesn't
should
fight
have
Indy.
fought him.
Yeah, he doesn't fight Indy. That was bullshit.
I
I was
know.
like waiting. I'm like, that's
I
a
know, me
fight.
too. I was waiting. I was like, shit, he didn't fight Indy.
I was like, that's the whole point of having these big guys in these movies is you fight them eventually, and it didn't happen. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And but literally, dude, I was so confused watching those scenes early on. I'm like trying to figure out which government agency are we even like following, and
I think it was
why,
the CIA.
I guess like because they had him as like their like scientist, which
Yeah.
is fine. Like I like the idea of like 'cause that happened. Like we took German
Yeah.
scientists and we brought like that's fine, that's cool. But we spend so much goddamn time with I don't even know her name, the agent.
Mason.
Yeah, Mason. Where she is, I was like, okay, cool. She seems like she's gonna be like one of the heroes of the movie, and then she gets shot. And I'm like,
Okay.
okay.
Let me ask you this. I'm gonna have some questions to ask you during this. Especially when we get to that third act, because we're gonna universally agree on that third act, I think. But would you essentially here's my question. Would you essentially replace Phoebe Waller Bridge with that character?
No, I would have found a better way to put Mason if I was gonna have Mason at all. Or I
Okay.
would have just eliminated that whole fucking part and just had goons the whole time. Like, why was there a good person among the goons? Like, if she's not gonna be like an important part of the movie, like it was
Yeah.
just. I was like, we know they're the bad guys. We saw Matt
Yeah.
Nicholson before.
Yeah, it was something that was like I found it like a little hard to follow at first, but then once I like figured out like what she was doing, I didn't mind it all that much. Plus, too, like I found it like I'm just glad nobody was backstabbing somebody like every 5 minutes, like Mac was and Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I mean,
I don't know. Phoebe Waller Bridge was backstabbing him a lot in this movie,
yeah,
while
I mean,
also not backstabbing him. It
yeah,
was like
probably more than Pirates of the Caribbean 3, right?
nothing's more than that movie. That's got so many backstabbing scenes.
Yeah,
But I don't know. It's just a lot of the characters did not work for me, and I don't know what it was, but I was like, and they were taking away the focus from Indy, who was
mhm.
great in this movie. And Harrison did a great
Yeah,
job.
he's great. He's great.
But it's just we spent like it felt like so much of the movie was just Phoebe Waller
It
Bridge
did
and the
not need to
boy and
be.
the plane and
It did
and I'm
not need
like,
to be 2.5 hours,
no, Antonio Banderas was cool for 5 minutes.
and then he gets shot.
I was like, okay. Like Sala was cool for 2 seconds.
Yeah,
Arian was cool for 1 second.
dude, she looked old, man.
He is old. It's been 15 years since Kingdom. I
Dude, she
literally
looks
said
older
that
than Harrison, though,
when
man.
I saw that
Dude,
with
Harrison Ford's a legend. Man, still looks like he's 50.
when I saw it with Andrew and Tim. Andrew turns to me and he goes, "Did they like age her for this?" And I was like, "No,
I
dude,
know
Kingdom
she
of the
wore a
Crystal
wig.
Skull was in 2008." And
Well,
he's
and
like,
plus
"What?"
two, yeah, and plus two, I know she wore a wig too for this.
Yeah, we'll get to it, but there was just so much of the movie to me that just felt kind of just washing over me, and that wasn't like clicking, and that
Yeah.
wasn't like
See,
exciting me. And I
see,
want
I
to be
was,
excited in an indie movie. Like I even
yeah.
felt like the music wasn't even exciting. Like they used the shit out of the Indiana Jones theme like every 20 minutes at least. Da, 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 da. Like, okay. Also, okay. There was some wonky CGI here. I'm gonna be nitpicky as fuck, but it pulled me out of the movie so bad. Next time you're watching the train sequence in the beginning, and he gets on the train and he's running across the top, that
Yeah,
CGI
that was the scene I mentioned in my spoiler free review. That's what I said. I said it wasn't the de aging. I said, but there's a scene where he's running across the top of a train, and the camera's zooming out, and it literally looks like a scene from like a movie from like 1996 or something.
it looks like how the Quidditch players look in the first Harry Potter.
The balloon people.
It's just a balloon guy, and the music though is swelling. It's like da 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 da, and I'm like, but he's awkwardly like,
Yeah,
shit. And I'm like, what the? Why did we let this pass? Like
I
this
know.
movie costs so much money. Like that's what pisses me off.
And for what?
Yeah, for what? Like none of the action sequences are crazy and memorable enough to warrant costing that much money. Like the other ones were made for so much less and have
Yeah.
so much more memorable action sequences. I don't understand where this money went. Was it all for the Roman battle that just
I
randomly?
honestly think that that's where a lot of it
Oh,
went.
oh,
Yeah. I disagree with the action because at least like here's my thing. And I know you're probably going to disagree with me after I say this because I think we've been disagreeing a lot. We've been comparing it to the fourth one. This felt more like an Indiana Jones movie to me than four.
Yes, I'll agree with that
Okay.
for the most part.
And I think that that's why I'm more on the positive side of this movie rather than like I still have my obvious like flaws with the movie, but
I
I
think
think
for
that's
me,
why I have more positives than negatives.
I think what the difference is Kingdom of the Crystal Skull felt like an intentional shift to try to let's put Indiana Jones in like a 50s B movie.
Yeah.
We'll have aliens, we'll have Russians, and it felt like we're gonna put them in like a different kind of movie. It's not gonna be a World War II serial anymore. It's
Right.
gonna be
Right.
a B movie. So it felt intentional. Whereas this one didn't feel like it was trying to say anything like with it just felt like, oh, it's gonna be an Indiana Jones movie, and you're gonna have the typical Indiana Jones things. You're gonna find bugs. You're gonna go
Yeah.
in
We'll
caves.
we'll touch on his age a little bit, but
Yeah, a little bit, but it also, I mean, I get why. I get why they did this to him, why they put him in this part of his life the way he is. But one of the only good things in the fourth one was that the end was nice. It was a nice ending. It was
I
like,
see.
oh,
I know where you're
he's
going with this. I've
married.
seen this complaint a lot already.
He's married, and Shia LaBeouf might pick up the hat, but no, he still got the hat, and it's like, oh, fun, good, happy ever after. And then this movie, it's like, I'm miserable in my apartment. It's being loud. And
Listen,
I'm like,
I listen. The more Harrison Ford is an old grumpy Harrison Ford,
I'm not about it.
yeah,
I'm not
it
about it.
didn't make sense to me that like Marion divorced him. Because I'm like, who gets divorced at the age of 80?
I mean, they lost their son, which made me kind of laugh at the theater that that's how they wrote off
I
money.
know, I
They
know.
sent him to Nam and he died, and I'm like, okay,
Yeah,
cool.
they could have
And
just said he's living on like a ranch in Montana or something.
it was just I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. Just something about just the movie just did not fully click with me. And I was sitting there and I was trying to figure out why. I'm like, why isn't this working like it should be? And every time the indie music kicked in, I wanted to be excited, but I couldn't be. It just wasn't like hyping me up. Like there was no action beats. Like there are moments in all the Indiana Jones movies you remember the action beat. Like
yeah,
you remember fucking the sound effect of when Temple of Doom where he shows up and starts beating people's asses before
yeah,
they jump and they go.
yeah.
Like you remember that stuff. You remember like Last Crusade. It's like every single one of those scenes. The father with the umbrella and these seagulls killing
Hmm.
the guy. Like it's like there's all these moments. Son, like Autos, like Raiders of the Lost Ark. Every scene is an iconic like action scene.
Right, right.
Even Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, I would argue you have memorable moments. Like I don't know what the hell the thing's called, but in the beginning of that movie where he's fighting the dude, and then they get onto the rocket thing that
Oh
launches the
yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah.
Like I remember that, and I always will remember that. Like those moments. There wasn't anything like that in this movie. There was no
Yeah, that was
moment
a
where I was
little
like,
strange.
"Hell yeah, Indy!" Like,
Yeah, that was a little strange, and I think that's mostly because of Harrison's age, though. I think they were really trying to stage the action because you could tell, like especially in the tuk tuk chase in Tangier, where it was like they mostly had him driving. They were trying. I think that was intentional because they were trying to keep him away from like doing the physicality of it at his age. But he's proven that he could do it. He's Harrison Ford. He's
you're
a
still making
legend.
an Indiana Jones movie.
Exactly.
If you're gonna decide to make an Indiana Jones movie and you have Harrison Ford, you still need to make him Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
I'm
On a
not gonna
more
accept anything less.
On a more positive note, let's talk about your favorite section of the movie. The section where they go to get the Graphicos, whatever the hell that was.
Yeah.
Uh, um,
They set it on fire.
yeah, but you said you like that, like
I,
much of this.
I I liked that sequence mainly because
It was
the
different.
rest of the movie felt like a lot of recycled Indiana Jones, like just run of the mill, like, oh, here he's running from the Nazi guys and he's going into this place and he's running from the Nazi guys. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay. But then finally they were like, oh, we're gonna do like an underwater scavenge,
Yeah.
like deep dive thing. And I was like, cool, I've literally never seen that in
And
Indiana Jones.
I like the idea of eels too, because Teddy's like, oh, there's eels. They look like snakes, and Indy's just like, What?
Yeah, like the fact there was eels as like this movie's like gross thing, but then they did the bugs later, which I was like, okay, let's just retread
Well, yeah,
Temple of
yeah,
Doom
they did. They
again.
redid the whole Temple of Doom bugs, but I do like how Raiders has the snakes, Temple has the bugs, Crusade has the rats, Crystal Skull has the ants, and this one has the eels
And the bugs.
and the bugs.
They couldn't decide, I guess. Um, but it was just it was cool because I hadn't seen anything like that in an indie movie. So I was sitting there and I was like, okay, at least this is something I've never seen.
That's the part of the movie where I've seen people say it slows down. And I'm like, I don't think it slows
I
down. Like,
I was bored in the middle section of this movie. I'll just straight up say.
I wasn't. I think that's my thing too. I think that's why I'm kind of leaning more positive than you because I never found myself bored somehow.
I
I
just
don't
there
know how I
wasn't
didn't, but I didn't.
there wasn't enough with like the thing to make me get like care through like the exposition parts. I was like, all right, it's Archimedes dial.
I think I was just more curious to see if the theories that we all had were gonna pan out. I think most of them did. So should we just get into this
Yeah,
acid third act?
I'll just say straight up, I appreciate that they had the balls to go out there and take a crazy shot. I appreciate the thought of we're going to do something absolutely wild and unheard of in an indie movie. Unfortunately, I don't think it works like whatsoever.
They didn't learn their lesson from Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
They doubled down on what Kingdom of the
Yeah,
Crystal Skull did,
yeah,
which was the more impactful thing about Raiders and Last Crusade is the thing and its power are mostly subtle, and then there are flashes of what they can do,
right,
and it's
right,
usually horrific and or magical.
yeah.
Where this one, it was like, let's just go fucking crazy,
Yeah.
and we're just
Okay,
gonna go through a
okay, okay.
wormhole. And I'm like,
Like here's my thing. The whole time. So the whole reason this whole thing happens. First of all, we have to get into that. So Volaire's whole plan is that he's going to try and collect like the second half of the dial. The dial allows you to it what's the word I'm looking for? It
it it lets you figure out where fissures in
fissures
time.
and essentially figure out where fissures in time are, and so that allows the wielder of the dial to go back in time. Which okay, I'm fine. Like if you explain it, but you don't show it, then I'm probably fine.
Listen, I thought we were gonna get a classic Indiana Jones thing where he activates the fucking time thing and then he turns into like a baby or something. Like that's what
um,
I thought was gonna happen. Or he gets like sucked or he gets like sucked into the future or
yeah.
something. I didn't
Uh,
think it was gonna be we're all going back in time to watch Indiana Jones meet Archimedes. I'm like,
hold on. We're
what?
not. Hold on. I'm not there yet. Because essentially, so Volaire's trying to get the other half of this dial because of
Blair sucked, by the way.
you didn't like him.
I love you, Mads, but you're playing the same dude over and over again now, and I'm
Yes,
kind
he
of
really
tired.
is. He
I'm
really is.
kind of tired of
Yeah,
it.
he really is. But his whole plan is essentially like, hey, like the Nazis lost World War II because they didn't have a competent leader, so I'm going to go back in time to 1939 to assassinate Hitler and become the new leader and lead the Nazis to victory.
You know where I literally thought this was going, and I was praying it wouldn't. Thank God it didn't, but then it went dumber.
Where?
I thought for a moment we were gonna time travel back to the book burning scene of Last Crusade, and then young Harrison was gonna team up with old Harrison, and we are gonna have the two Harrisons
Yeah.
fight Hitler.
Yeah, I think I don't know. The third like them discovering Archimedes' tomb was I thought that was actually fine. That was cool.
I liked the one moment of like, oh, this bird has propellers, and I was like, oh, there's a watch in here, time travel.
Yeah. That's what I was just about to get to because once you get to that scene in the movie, that's where I think it starts to crumble. Because once they open Archimedes' tomb, there's a modern day, or at least in Indiana Jones terms, like because it's modern day in Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
But there's like a 1950s, 1960s watch in there, so I'm like, well, shit. I know if we're doing time travel, I know exactly where we're going, and so Indy gets shot And then he's literally bleeding out for the last like 30 minutes of the
He
movie. I'm
got
like, "Man,
shot
he's
like
80
the
years old. He's
heart.
gonna die."
He
Like,
got shot like the heart too.
yeah, I'm like, he's 80 years old. I'm like, by the time you went back in time, I'm pretty sure he would have been dead. So yeah, so he's got a bullet wound for the last third of the movie, and then here's my thing: like, why not just have like when you activate the dial, when you put it together, why not just have it just zap them to where they have to go? Why does it have to be like you have to get in a plane and then oh, the clouds open up and there's this portal. It's like the parting of the Red Sea. And oh wait, no, wait, we didn't take continental drift into effect. So but it only like we're trying to go back to 1939, but oh wait, the dial only leads back to one specific era in time, and that is 214 BC to the Battle of Syracuse. And they kept foreshadowing it for the whole movie.
They talked about it the whole time. And then there was
Yeah.
like the dragon and
yeah. But I actually thought that was kind of funny, where it was like the Roman soldiers were like, the dragon sky.
I just couldn't believe what was happening.
Yeah.
And Tim,
once we got there, I was like, oh no.
Dude,
oh no.
You could literally feel
okay.
You could feel Tim's energy shift completely.
Yeah.
He all of a sudden next to me, I hear, what the
yeah. But I don't think that was the worst part. What the worst part of that third act for me was when Indy was like, Helena, go home. Leave me here.
Dude, at that point, I wanted that to happen. I was like, if we're gonna do this, fucking fine. Have him stay.
That would have been movie breaking for me.
Nah, I honestly probably would have preferred that because I thought the ending was really depressing and bad. I thought it was boring and
like
bad.
I like the idea of Indy like being like an archaeologist. Like this is the stuff that he's studied his whole life, and he wants to live in the past so he can experience it. But at the same time, I'm like, no, don't kill Indiana Jones.
I would have preferred that. I think Indy dying in history makes more sense than Indy going back home to be like, oh hey Marion, oh my hat. That's the end of the movie. You know, like
what the do thing.
It was just
yeah. See now, I'm on the opposite spectrum. I thought both of those were dumb, and that was the thing I was alluding to in my spoiler-free review. I said the third act gets asinine. There's choices made in the third act that I don't agree with, but the thing that I alluded to, where I said they almost make a choice and they almost follow through on it, and they don't. That's what I was alluding to, was Indy staying in the past. I even think them even bringing that up, like Indy staying in the past, that even kind of pisses me off. That even kind of rubs me the wrong way.
Dude, honestly, dude, he had a bullet hole in him. If I was him, I'd be like, just leave me. I'm not flying through a cloud again. Like,
okay. And then here's the other thing too. So it's like they go through the fissure in time. So 214 BC. And then you hear Volaire's men like, we gotta go back, and then somebody else is like, no, we can't, like we might not make it because the thing's gonna close. So like when Helena roundhouse punches Indy and knocks him out, and she says Teddy brought them back. How was there enough time for Teddy to get back through?
If dude, how is that kid even flying a plane?
I know.
He's like so much of this movie is on fucking Helena and Teddy. And I'm like, I don't care about these people. I don't care. Like
they were definitely trying to make him the next Short Round.
Dude, it was annoying. I was like, I would have preferred if you just brought back Short Round.
They should have.
They should have had someone we know and care about and has an established relationship with Indy, who's not going through the whole movie going, oh, capitalism. Like, what the hell was I? It was weird. I was like, I was not on board with so much. It's like I enjoyed this movie more when I first left the theater. I slept on it, and then I was like,
told me this.
I slept on it, and I was like, what the hell was that? Like that wasn't what I wanted. That wasn't what it should have been. That was a weird movie.
I mean, I agree. Like, I mean, do I think that Indy should have went out on a higher note? Yes, but at the same time, like I tampered my expectations going into this movie. I knew it was never going to live up to the legacy or reach the magic and the heights of the original three. All I needed it to be was to be better than Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. And in my eyes, I was more satisfied because I think as asinine as that third act is, Indy going back in time and hanging out with Archimedes and being like, oh, well, he gives Archimedes the watch or something, and that's how the watch ends up in the tomb. And like, and Helena's like, oh no, like we can't leave you here because it will be like a paradox.
The watch was from the Nazis who who started shooting at the Roman soldiers, and then they get killed by catapults or ballista or whatever. And I was like, what the hell is like the moment Boyd Holbrook is just yeah, just shooting a machine gun at like Roman soldiers? I'm like, what is this movie? What am I watching? This
Look,
isn't
they
getting
they
shown.
went for it, man. They
They
went for it.
went for it, but the thing about going for it, you can take a big swing, but you can miss, and
I
they
know.
missed
They missed. I
hard.
agree. I agree. They missed. Here's the question I have for you. If they had gone back to 1939, would the blow of time travel and like them actually going back in time, would it have lessened? No.
I mean, it probably visually would have lessened because at least you're in a time period where Indiana Jones exists.
Yeah.
Whereas when you go back to like when I'm watching Roman soldiers running up a beach and like shooting people with arrows, I'm like, what
In an
are
Indiana Jones movie.
what movie am I watching? Like it was weird.
Yeah, and
And
then Indy just
I'm fine trying new things out, but I don't think it fit with Indiana Jones at
no, I mean, I think here's my thing. Like, yeah, I do think they shouldn't have gone full blown time travel. I think it should have been implied, much like the aliens in Crystal Skull should have been implied. Like, we didn't need to see a flying saucer.
Dude, yeah, literally, that's the thing. This was the flying saucer, but for 25 minutes. And that's kind of why I give a slight edge to the end of that movie because they were mostly subtle about the extraterrestrial parts of that movie. They
Yeah,
were mostly like subtle. They were like, this is a weird looking skull and it's got telepathic powers and whatever. It's found in Roswell. Like, yeah, it's aliens, but they don't really go, yeah, it's aliens until like the flying saucer moment. And this movie should have pulled back and not double down because this was literally I had the same feeling when the flying saucer came up back in 2008. I was like, what the hell am I watching?
I know.
And that was this for 25 minutes. At least the flying saucer was like 45 seconds long. Like this was like I was sitting there like, what is this?
In an Indiana Jones movie.
Yeah, like I appreciate that you set it up. You kept showing the battle of what you call it. You kept. You, I appreciate what you tried to do. I don't think it worked. I think
No.
it didn't fit
Yeah.
for Indiana
I
Jones.
think we've differed a lot in this, but I think that that's like the one thing almost I mean, even online too, that almost universally, unanimously, everybody agrees on. Like, no, they shouldn't have not have done that. It should have been subtle time travel. Like, what if Volaire got his hands on it and then he was about to put it together and then Indy just killed him or something.
Or
And I
turned
also
into
thought
a
the way
baby. He turned into a baby.
yeah, I also thought the way he died was stupid. Like the plane just goes down.
Dude, the villains were so blah. They were
Yeah,
so like even the Nazis of the previous movies had memorable things about them. Like
yeah.
the first one had the guy with the thing in his hand, and then the third one had that one Nazi guy that was super memorable who got punched out of the air with a blimp, like on the tank and all that. Like these guys, it was Mads Mikkelsen and the guy from Logan, and that big guy, and that was
Just
it.
a
It
bunch
was
of
like
random goons.
you had Mads Mikkelsen, who you might as well have been putting in Caecilius lines from Doctor Strange.
I know, or like La Schifra lines
or
or
La
Brenda
Shifra, or
lines.
so many other. And then Boyd Holbrook is just like, "Hey, Logan, I'm a big fan.
Yeah, he was
Where's
just
the
playing
girl?"
Donald. He was just playing Donald Pierce all over
Yeah,
again.
he just, "Where's the girl, Logan?" Oh, like I was just like,
And you
what?
could tell that that was like a carryover because it's Mangold. So Mangold was like, "Oh, he worked in Logan. I'm gonna put him in this movie."
Sure, but I really thought none of the characters worked except Indy. And I think that's probably one of the big problems. Oh, no, Antonio Banderas was cool for a few minutes.
Yeah, I liked him. I like Banderas.
Yeah, for his 2 minutes.
Yeah, and
And
then
then
he
he
got
got,
shot.
yeah, I was like, okay, cool,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. So I think that wraps it up. As I said, probably on somewhat different spectrums, but I think in agreement on some aspects.
I think it's better than Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, but not by nearly as much as I
Okay,
wish.
because that was going to be my next question was for you to rank them.
Yeah, I go Last Crusade, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Temple of Doom
How
down a
fucking
ways, and then way further down, I got Dial of Destiny, just barely skirting over last Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. So.
Yeah, I think I toy back and forth every day with Raiders and Crusade. Like I literally changed like those because those are my top two. I literally changed that like 8 times last week.
Yeah.
So I think I have Crusade there though right now.
Crusade all the way.
Yeah, it's Crusade, Raiders, Temple, and then Dial of Destiny, and then down here, Crystal Skull.
No way.
Yeah. All right, where can they find you, Pat?
You can find me on Twitter at this Pat guy.
All right, you can find me at my official website, alexmaddenmovies.mystrikingly.com. All my social media links are there. You guys are the best. I'm Alex. That's Pat. We'll see you at the movies somewhere.
It belongs in a museum.